Utah Puck Report. I'm your friend in hockey, Jay Stevens. I want to thank my sponsor, first off, Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray. When you buy a car from them, you're part of the family, and you can get, service is amazing there. Look them up at larryhmiller.com. Just go check them out. They got tons of these awesome Forerunners in there. I'm jealous. They're sick. My guest today from KSL Sports, he's my cohort, Cole Bagley. Cole, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Been busy week, so excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And former NHL player, current coach in the Utah area, good source to just get knowledge from. Jack Skille, former first-round draft pick from the Chicago Blackhawks. Jack, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Jay. Cole, good to meet you, and hopefully I can help here.
Yeah.
Well, we know you can help. And first, let's just talk about it. We'll start kind of in reverse order of what happened this week. Let's just talk about the name drop, kind of the worst kept secret especially after the YouTube leak. Everybody knew that was going to happen. Jack, I'm going to start with you because you kind of maybe you weren't that interested in it, but what did you think about seeing Mammoth as the name and the process that they went through? And had you ever seen anything like that during your career?
No, I mean, this was new, having the people of Utah pick the name. That was pretty cool, and can see how that can make things a little bit murky and confusing, probably mostly on their end. It obviously built up some steady anticipation there, and everyone got excited. So for Mammoth, it makes sense. I think for me that name made the most sense out of any of them. Yeti was cool. I liked Outlaws. I was always talking about Saints. I know that was never an option, but I thought
I
the
wanted
Saints
it to
would have
be
been
fighting
cool.
Saints too.
Yeah,
Matches right in with the Mormons.
A lot of things you could have done with that, but Mammoth is really neat. The history of the area, and I think it's a good fit with the color scheme that they had for. It looked like they were really pushing hard for Yeti, but pretty simple transition to Mammoth, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too. So Cole, what did you think? Did you just know the whole time that this was what was going to happen?
Yeah, for the most part. Like you said, it was kind of the worst kept secret. And if you paid close enough attention to, just kind of the turns and the twists that they made at most points, it was very clear that Mammoth was going to be the name. And I would agree with Jack. I think it just matches the aesthetic that they've built from day one, and leaning into Utah, the mountains, the snow, and the colors. I liked Outlaws. But I just feel like Mammoth kind of matches a little bit more of what they've been, kind of building in terms of an identity. And the fans really jumped on it. Once Yeti was out of the conversation, there were Outlaws supporters, but Mammoth just seemed to be what most people gravitated towards. And I think they made the right choice. I thought they did a great job, with the designs and, all of the kind of Easter eggs and, the things that you can find within that logo. And I think it fits too, like the NHL, like Utah Mammoth. It goes with the Minnesota Wild, the Nashville Predators, the Colorado Avalanche. Like I think it just fits, everything the way that it needed to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like I was saying right before we went on the air, I went yesterday. I went through all the stuff. I got my shirt, and I promised the first time I met with Ryan Smith, and I was all in like Vegas night stuff. And I told him, I said, hey, you really bring an NHL team here. I won't wear I'll be head to toe, and I'll even get the logo tattooed. And then Nick Archer, one of the artists that actually kind of was, I think, really helped develop this concept that we ended up seeing. Nick Archer reached out and he's like, hey, I'm your guy. I'll do your tattoo. So today, one day after the announcement, I'm going in and getting the logo tattooed. So
Where are
I
you
guess
putting it?
I haven't decided yet. Probably on my arm, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Might just let Nick pick. I don't know. My wife keeps telling me
I'd
the
wait like
tramp.
a week. Let's make sure that there's no copyright infringements or trademark issues first.
Yeah, I'm positive. I'm betting that they've gone through all that, but my wife keeps
Yeah.
telling me if you're gonna do it, you should get it in the tramp stamp spot.
Nice.
So the other big thing this week that happened with the team is the draft lottery, and I've watched a ton of these, and I've felt like, first off, the NHL saying that this is the first time they did it live kind of surprised me because I swear that I'd seen it live before with Crosby. I thought I seen it live with even I want to say Paul Correa back in the day. Like I want to see. I thought I'd seen the draft lottery held live before. Anyway, they did it. I watched it. I had zero idea what was going on. The whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, it just seemed easier to just to put the amount of balls with the logo on it or something. But I didn't get it. And then all of a sudden, I could see that we were excited about something, and Utah basically ends up winning the draft. They move up the most amount of spots they can move up from 14 to 4. And for me, that means we go from looking for a guy that we're going to look like cook in the minors for a while to a guy that could make the lineup next year. And Jack is a former first round pick, and as an NHL scout and all the other stuff that you've done. What do you think this going from 14 to 4 means for the club? What are we looking for in a player? And do you have your eye on any player that could fit the match, or do you trade it?
Oh man, that's such a tough question because Bill seems to be a guy that always has an ace up his sleeve every draft. He's pretty good at looking at the future. Obviously, historically speaking, building through the draft in Arizona, had a really good draft last year. Watching the team all year, I think they could use some more depth. And where you get that depth is it remains to be seen, right? I think that's maybe some offseason signings for free agent signings, and obviously we're not going to know that until the first week of July, but um, there's some pretty good prospects. Obviously, you gave me a few names. To be honest, like I'm a guy that admits when I don't know, but honestly I've been watching these kids. Jason, what's his last name here? Um, oh
Which
my
one are you
God, I'm
talking about?
butchering it here. Jason.
Porter. Oh, James Higgins.
Yeah, sorry, James Hagens. Sorry, James Hagens, Cole Bodion, and Porter. I think those are good prospects for sure. Different styles, right? So with Porter, you have from what I've seen, based on what I've seen, obviously I butchered the name, so sorry about that. But Porter is obviously long. He's big. I think he's 6'4", 210.
Wow.
He's got really good hands, can stick handle in a phone booth. He's got a great shot, and it fits. Like for me, that's a fit for depth in what I'm saying. With James, it seems to me that he's more of a disher. He's a good skilled forward. He can provide some depth up front as well. And with Cole, it's more of a meat and potatoes guy, 200-foot player. But yeah, I think it's different styles. Each of those players that I brought up could be a defenseman. Looks like some pretty strong defensemen coming up through the pipeline as well. But yeah, like I said, I think Porter, Porter Martone,
Yep.
he fits the mold of what I would possibly expect for them to look for in terms of depth. With James Hagen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's you know the video I've watched, like I have access to Instat, right? So I can see all their shifts. I saw their three most recent games, and just watching these guys, James for me is he's going to be a really good. He's got great vision. He's a good passer. He's got a good shot. He's a goal scorer. He's a playmaker. Kind of like the same mold as Keller and Gunther a little bit. So I think it's you're rolling the dice in this draft, right? You always are. You never really know. At 14 to 4. I mean, you look at my draft when I was drafted. You look at the guys that were drafted behind me. Kopitar was drafted after me, right?
Oh
He's still
wow.
playing, and like it's just like you never really know. And if you look at the top 7 or 8 of that year for my draft, like how many of those guys really panned out and had like truly long careers? Like there's only, I think you can count on like one hand or just a couple fingers really who've really made an impact on the league long term. So and then there's players that you look in the second, third round that have, fourth round, like all those guys in that draft year for me. I look at those names sometimes. I'm like, holy crap, that guy had a career, right? Like that guy was a late pick, and he developed really nicely. So I think that this organization, Utah's got a lot of depth in their pipeline already. I think that they have done a really good job of building through the draft in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe use that as trade bait in a way. to maybe open up a chance for a big free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a player like Porter, who he's a big frame, and that's like I think that's what they need up front, a big frame that plays heavy, physically, but also can stick handle on a phone booth and can score, has a great shot, good vision. Needs to work on his skating, right? Like I can see that clear as day. Like he's a
That
big
was the
boy,
one thing.
so
Yeah, that was the one thing I noticed the most about him is this like, and I'm not one that goes, "Oh, I don't like that guy's stride very often," but his skating did look like it was broken up, like which is weird to see a guy that high in the draft with kind of that broken stride. But then they get in front of a guy
yeah.
like you and get fixed, right?
Yeah, over time. I mean, it takes time, right? Like development's a crock pot, not a microwave. And I think that's how they all look at it, right? So like that's what makes it difficult in the draft. When you're building through the draft, you never really know who's really going to pan out because there's a lot of work that goes into those prospects, right? And you hope that, if it's Porter ends up being Porter, well, we're gonna, get you a little bit more explosive. We got to get you a little bit more powerful on your edges and get that big frame moving north south, and that takes time. So yeah, his stride is a little broken up, but honestly, like he's got good hockey IQ. As long as players like that, can keep up with the pace of this new NHL style, the game's evolving right before our eyes. And if you look at Dallas, Florida, Colorado, that was holy crap. The Dallas Colorado series was insane. But they're, the teams that are winning or in the hunt consistently are big framed players that can move and they're long, they're disruptive on the forecheck. They know what they are. They get to the net. They got good hands and good playmaking ability. And then you salt bay each team with some east, west, north, south speed guys like McKinnon and McCarr. And
Oh, shit.
yeah, I mean, you look at those identities of Florida, Dallas, and Vegas and Colorado, pretty similar identities as a team, different systems, but like, you know, that's what people are going for. So I wouldn't be surprised if Porter's gone by
Oh
pick
yeah,
number 4, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. I mean, it seems where everybody's got him ranked, and you got Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa, who pretty much are known as 1 and 2. So yeah, at 3 and 4, who knows? He could be gone. Cole, you follow the team a lot. You're at all the practices. You get to talk to the guys quite a bit. I keep telling everybody I think we need like a big body, maybe even first line center to go in because you've already got the visionary with Clayton Keller making the passing. Nicole, what are you hearing, or what do you think the team's going to do with the draft, and what do you think of the prospects?
Yeah, based on some of the early conversations I've had, and as soon as this lottery took place, I've just kind of jumped into reading as many reports as I can, looking at mock drafts and all those kinds of stuff. And I would echo a lot of what Jack was talking about. And yeah, I think that Bill's mindset is to pick the best player available, whoever that may be. So, I think Schaefer and Misa are probably going to be 1 and 2. I don't know who's going to, I don't know if it's going to be Misa 1 or Schaefer 1, but I expect them to go 1 and 2, which then from that point, there's one pick ahead of you. Yeah, Martone could go, ahead of you. I think Frondell, Denoyers, like Hagen's, who knows, what Chicago, really is
I don't
looking
know. Like
for.
if you look at Chicago, I think like Hagen's might be a good pick for them at number
Yeah.
3, right?
Yeah.
Just he's playing with Leonard, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
guy that can clearly play with a highly skilled player. That might be something that they have in match, in their cards for Bedard, right? To get him
Mhm.
going, and give him some help there. So yeah, I think it's I don't know. I really like Porter. Like out of all the
Yeah.
prospects you mentioned, like I like Porter a lot. Like he's that style of player that I think would be a really good fit, welcoming fit in this lineup in the future.
Mhm.
Whether he makes an impact right away, I mean, it,
Yeah.
it remains to be seen.
No, I agree with you. He's a lot of people are saying that they should take Higgins, and to be honest, like I think he's a good player, but I don't know that he's the right fit. And I don't really love where his confidence level seems to be right now. I think last year he played really, really well, but then for Boston College this year, he had 37 points in 37 games, but he didn't lead his team in scoring. He didn't lead his team in terms of assists. it didn't feel like you were getting the most out of him. Whereas I feel like Martone's playing with a ton of confidence right now. 98 points in 57 games this last season. The only thing that I've really seen in terms of maybe areas he needs to improve is what you guys already mentioned, his skating ability. But he just seems like a kind of a one-man wrecking ball in the offensive zone. He can create, he can shoot, he puts himself in good situations. He's good one-on-one. And like you were saying, Jack, I think that's the type of player that Utah needs, is a guy that can create on his own, is a guy that's going to be able to kind of drive the ship a little bit and do a little bit of everything. A lot of people want Utah to take a center, and yeah, they probably could use that. But again, I think Bill is going to select the best player that's remaining overall. And to me, if the things take place that we've talked about, where Schaefer and Misa go 1 and 2, and then the Blackhawks do end up taking Higgins, if I was Utah, I would absolutely take Martone at 4.
Yeah, and I agree with center though. Like just watching them all year, I think that's what I meant in like depth, right? Like if you look at the strongest teams in the NHL, like up the middle, they're so strong. And I mean, look at what Colorado did, right? Like they traded away Middlestat, second line center. They just, he's a good player, right? Like really good player, but they were like, well, we need better, right? So they got Brock Nelson. Right. So it's like you give up a guy like Middlestat for a guy like Brock Nelson, and he's an established second line center. And second line center is just such a hard role in the NHL. We saw it with Cooley earlier this year where he was struggling a little bit, playing second line center. And then he started learning like how to be a little bit more loose and smart in the D zone, conserving some energy so that he could explode up ice and do his thing. And he really took off from there. And then now, he ended up on the first line between Keller and Schmaltz. And I think that's a great line. I think, Cooley, Schmaltz, Keller, but you give up depth, right? And I think as a coach, like you don't want to give up too much depth in your lineup. So, and I like Hayton. I just don't know if he's really there yet for second line center yet, right? Like, it remains to be seen if he'll ever really get there. I really see him as a 200-foot compete, shutdown center right now. He's disruptive on the forecheck. He knows what he is, and he can make plays. He can score some goals, but he's really, really defensively reliable. And I think that's a guy that can be really establish himself as a third line center. And then you guys maybe, Utah could, the Mammoth could sign a big name second line center in free agency. I don't think you're going to get that right away through the draft, though, right? Like it's that the draft is always going to take time, right? So if they want to make an impact next year, I'm not Bill and I'm not, John Ferguson Jr., but I mean, it's pretty clear. Like, I think something big's going to happen. I hope something big happens.
Last year we picked Cole Beaudoin. We moved up to get him. He's a big body center playing juniors right now. I thought maybe that's somebody that could potentially take that second line. He's
Who's
19.
that?
That's the Cole Beaudoin that I sent you. He was our
Playing for the Barrie Colts right now.
Yeah, he was
had a good year.
Yep. I watched his clips. I just don't see him being ready for that type of role. Again, second line center, that's such a heavy role.
No, they say that's one of the hardest spots in the NHL, right? Like second line center, you're always matched up against the better team, the better line. I had a pretty good talk with Bear about that a couple weeks ago on the show too, and yeah, we got to find somebody. I keep saying we've got the money. Sam Bennett is an unrestricted free agent. He just, to me, and I've said it over and over and over again to the point where even Bill Armstrong's like, maybe don't say it as much, like, because it makes it seem like I know something. I don't know anything, but that's who I think. I watch the NHL. Personally, one of my favorite players I would want to add is if you could get like a Noah Hannafin or even Barkov, which obviously those guys are locked up forever, but a guy like that, like a big body menace in front of the net, and then that'll open up a little bit more room for Keller on that first line. Or, if we truly get a real good second line center, we need a bully for lack of a better term. We need a offensively talented bully that can, set the tone for the team. At least that's what I've thought.
And I think Andre's, it all depends on what Andre and Bill and their whole staff, like what kind of identity do they want and what kind of culture are they bringing in, right? And I think like that's never going to be really known. That's why we have these conversations on hypotheticals, right? Like we don't really know what their internal discussions are, and they do have that, right? Like they have a certain identity that they want their future to be. Again, they have some of those things in their pipeline right now, with good players that are developing. You're never really going to know until you really understand like what type of identity does Andre want for his team, what type of identity and culture is Bill trying to cultivate and grow over time. Once you really understand those concepts, you can start painting a better picture. But until those things are really known, like, it's tough. Like I personally think like just watching that team play, Utah, I agree with you, Jay. They could use a lot more bite, like just depth wise in the lineup, just more bite, to their game. And if you look at a guy like Sam Bennett, oh my God, there's nothing but bite to that guy's game. So that's a huge pickup in a free agency, especially if they got money and cap space for it. That would be amazing to see. And I think that'd be a massive boost to their front end. And if you look at the back end, like future's really bright with Utah in terms of depth of D, not only on their roster, but also coming up. Right. So they're close, like they're really close. And that's why I think like a draft's great, like a Porter, that style of player, tall, long, physical, good hands, can score, can make plays, defensively reliable. Like those are good players, but those guys take time. So if they want to make an impact right away, I think it's a free agency signing that someone's established as a second line center. I think that's really what they need the most right now. Not to discredit guys like Hayton. They're great. I just don't really see them as an established second line center right now. I mean, he had his chance all year.
No.
Yeah. Well, Utah has roughly $22 million to go play with in free agency.
Wow.
And, Chris Armstrong said there's not a lot of conversations. And I think he even said there's no conversation that we can't entertain with the amount of money that we can spend. So, no, there's some big names that are going to become free agents here in the next couple of months. And, Utah, I think, will be in the sweepstakes for quite a few of those guys, trying to see if they can't bring in a big name. And, to your point, add some more of that depth, right? Like they're a good team, but they're still, a few steps away from really being dangerous.
Yeah, like the way I like to look at it, I think if you're looking at it from a realistic lens, like in the NHL, you look at this player here, you go, okay, well, this team didn't make the playoffs. Where would that player slot in on a team that's going deep in the playoffs, right? Where would they slot in that lineup? And that's kind of where the way I'm thinking right now. It's like, okay, the current players they have on the roster, they're good players. And, it's a lot of young players. And they're learning how to play the right way, and there's a lot of teaching, I'm sure, behind closed doors with Andre and his staff. I know they're great hockey people and just good people in general, and they're doing a great job. It's just this stuff takes time, so it will really help them, I think, to add some experience depth into that and provide some juice to this team, and I think it would be really welcomed here.
Players that are supposed to make the roster this year that are already in the system include Dmitry Simashev, who played in the KHL, and Daniil Boot.
Daniil Boot.
Yeah, those are two players, big players that are kind of expected to make the lineup this year, which makes it a little more complicated, for those other free agents coming in or for another draft. So nothing but bright futures is what I'm seeing for.
Yep.
The Utah Mammoth, as I got to get used to saying.
It matters like how fast do they want to move on this, right? Are they willing to like do this as over a 5-year plan, or is this like a 2-year window, right? That's going to dictate what they do with their prospects. I say if it's a year or 2 window, it's like, well, we're going to trade some prospects for some heavy free agents, or or not free agents, some heavy established veteran players, or we're going to spend some dough and get some established veterans through free agency. 5-year plan, it's like, well, we're not really going to give up our future for that yet, right? Like I think there's a little bit, but again, this is all hypothetical unless you really know their what they want their identity and culture to be, and in what and how fast.
Yeah, they've been pretty open. Bill Armstrong's pretty open about where they are in the rebuild, and that this wasn't the year that we were going to make playoffs. And he's flat out said, and he was on my show like a month ago where he was talking about it. He's like, look, if I trade now and get that player, well, that costs you not only money, but it costs you that prospect. That the goal is build everybody, bring them up together. Like next season, they expect to make the playoffs. That's the first time
Yep.
they've said we expect to be, they wanted to play meaningful games this year. They want to be in the playoffs next season. But that's the goal, make playoffs. And
Yep.
I don't see them getting or dumping a bunch of prospects to bring in somebody to just make playoffs. I do see them spending some money, but again, they still got to lock up. It's Cooley that needs to be locked up?
And McBain.
And McBain. So I know they're going to go try to lock up Cooley right away, and that's going to take a lot of that cap.
They better lock up McBain too. Like, and I know they're probably thinking that. I mean, he had a stellar season. I mean, he was one of my favorite players to watch all year. I mean, it was like knows what he is. Plays the same way every single night, whether he's in the top 6 or bottom 6. Super reliable, gets to the hard areas, physical, provides toughness. I mean, he's a great player. Like, and he had a really big year. And I mean, maybe the numbers don't reflect it to the odd fan that doesn't really understand like what to look for in terms of like bringing an identity and a culture to a lineup. But McBain is like, he's a big part of it. I'm sure they're seeing the same thing. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Like Cooley, they're going to have to lock him up. They will. There's no way they're going to let him go. Of course, like that'd be whatever. But
Cooley's probably an $8 million guy. Jack McBain was making 1.6 this year. You could probably lock him up for 3, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking big spending on that. Cooley, you got to spend a lot. McBain, $3 million. That leaves you a lot of money to bring in Sam Bennett. Maybe that'll be the last time I say it, so that I don't get.
Well, what they like last year they signed Sergachev, Cole, and then who else for free agency?
Yeah, they brought in Olimata.
Well, they traded for him, right?
Yeah, but they extended him. They extended Oli though.
Yeah, and he's a good puck moving defenseman, reliable, some offensive upside, but he's more of a stabilizer back there, right? Like he keeps things stable. So yeah, I mean,
I don't expect Bukestad to be back. Carcone said that he's not coming back. I think they're going to try and move Michelli. I think that relationship has just reached the point where it's more beneficial for both sides if they find him a new home and they can get some sort of assets back out of that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly to what I'm saying. I think you're seeing it. You're like 100% seeing it. Like Michelli's like an East-West guy, like good vision, good playmaker, but it's not really, I don't know, just observing, like if I were to like assume what Andre wants, like just from watching this year, I just don't see Michelli fitting into that style, that identity, right? So, although he's a good player and he's a power play specialist for sure, like he can hit a seam pass like anybody I've ever seen, but he also passes up shots all the time too for that, right? So, and he, again, it's like when you want to win games, win games long term, there's a certain style you have to play. Like all the coaches talk about it too, and you gotta be ramping up into playoffs. Like you got to be playing playoff hockey to get, there's no such thing as a switch that you just pop on. Okay, now we're playoffs. We're a different team. No, you have to play that way going in, and you got to build it from the start of the year. And I saw them building. I saw from the first half of the season, it was just like turnovers, a lot of turnovers. They got better and better managing the puck and managing their game over the course of the year. It helped them win at the later, the second half of the season, like managing the puck better and playing to more of a team identity. And you saw those parts like getting moved in and out of the lineup in that second half, the guys that really weren't buying in to that style. So I can certainly see that growth, and I can, Cole, to your point, I could see them moving a guy like Michelli just based on his style.
Jack, I want to ask you something. A lot of national reporters have said that, Utah was hoping to enter either the Rantanen or Marner sweepstakes this offseason. Obviously, Rantanen locked up in Dallas, so that makes Marner the biggest upcoming free agent. As Chris Armstrong said, there's no conversation that they can entertain. If Marner doesn't, if he tests free agency, he doesn't want to, immediately re-sign with Toronto. Is Marner a guy that makes sense for the Mammoth, like his play style, his attitude? And as we've been talking about, there's a certain style that they're looking for. There's a certain type of player they're looking for. Does he fit that in your mind?
That's such a tough question because like he's such an excellent player, right?
Yeah.
Like, how could you pass up on Marner?
Right.
I think it's going to boil down to like fit, to your point, in the lineup. Like, I could see Marner playing really well with a guy like Gunther, sorry. Like, sorry, there's a Matt Gunther manager at Park City Ice Rink, and he's a friend of mine, so I always butcher those two names. But Gunther is such a special shooter, and he's a spot shooter, right? Like he gets to his spots. So a guy like Marner's got unbelievable vision and playmaking ability on his own, but he's going to be able to find a guy like Gunther, right? I see Sam Bennett being a good fit too, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got good vision, he's got a dangerous shot, he's really good below the dots and between the dots, like. But he's so smart defensively too, and he transports pucks, like carries it up the ice, right? So like I, it's like that's such a tough. If you can get a both, excellent. That's what I would say. Go for both. Go for both.
Why not? I mean, we got the money.
Yeah.
Utah might win the cup if they get both of those guys.
I just don't see Marner being a fit.
A couple free agency signings away. I'm telling you, like they're that close, and I think that's what they're saying. Like we're right there, And I think, and I agree. I think they're doing an excellent job. I was telling people before the season started, I don't really see them making the playoffs. I hope they do, right? And I think that everyone knew it was going to be tough. And I think they're really, really close. This is like really exciting.
It is very exciting. Speaking of NHL playoffs, before we wrap up here, anything surprising you guys so far about round 2? Or should we just talk about Rantanen since he just owns NHL playoffs right now?
Dallas is dangerous. Like I didn't have them coming out of the first round, and obviously it took some Rantanen magic in the third period in a game 7 against Colorado, but Dallas might they might finally do it this year. I mean, that's just what it feels like right now.
Jake Ottinger, an amazing goaltender. Rantanen's just on a tear, just throwing down like hat tricks every game. Robertson's just a phenomenal player too. Yeah, and you got Jamie Benn. That's that bully that I was talking about. Like everybody's afraid of him, right? Like he opens up ice for skilled players. But yeah, I did not see Dallas doing as well as they're doing. I did not see Toronto manhandling Florida. Well, I mean, the hits, Florida's doubling on hits, but Toronto just seems to be absorbing it, staying out of the bull crap, and just winning the first 2 games. So I think those 2 surprised me a little bit. I think I was a little surprised with the Edmonton Vegas first game, but those could go either way. It was a good game. Jack, what do you think? What do you got?
Well, I mean, the surprises for me are Carolina right now. Like I just I don't see them like just in terms of identity. Like maybe I'm just missing something. I see them as smaller East-West style players, super skilled, super fast, right? But it's not really the style that gets you deep, right, in the playoffs. But they're doing really well. Toronto has been a little bit of a surprise against Florida so far, right? Like I thought that was going to be a little bit more of an even matchup than what we've seen. I think Toronto's just so deep with speed, and that's a team that you just got to slow down with your checking game. And Florida's got the checking game, but it's like I don't know. I haven't watched enough of their series to understand like what's going on with Florida. But Florida's just such a heavy checking team, and so good on the forecheck. And when they're hammering down on the forecheck and in your face and smothering you, it's really hard to get anything done with them. And it looks like to me, I think the results speak for themselves. They're having a tough time against Toronto. I had Dallas going. I have them going the whole way. I always have this year. I said last year, I think the cup goes through Dallas. I was almost right. So if like Edmonton would have won, right? Like I'm saying the same thing again this year. They've been so close, right? And I think them beating Colorado like that. Wow, like what an excellent like finish to that series. That was absolutely bonkers.
Crazy.
And then Mikko is just still lighting up. I didn't even see the games last night. I got my phone blowing up going Mikko, all caps from all my buddies. It's like I'm missing it. I was on the ice with some kids or talking with some parents at the rink, whatever. But with Miro and Robertson coming back, like that's going to be a tough team to beat. That Dallas team is a wagon. Like they have so much depth. And they play this certain style where they basically, fly the zone and they just press against you like the whole game. A little risky against a team like Colorado. We saw them kind of like a little bit of a track meet, turning the puck over. Colorado's just quick transition right back at you. And I think that's why they struggled in that series. And they were missing two of you could argue, two of their best players. So now they're coming back, and yeah, I see Dallas going far. I had a Florida Dallas final in my bracket.
Oh,
So I'm a little shocked right now by Toronto.
yeah. Well, they were home, so maybe when Florida gets back, and you're right. I saw Florida completely dominate. They were doing exactly what they wanted to do, and they seemed to be controlling. There wasn't a lot of offensive zone time for Toronto during those games, and then all of a sudden there would just be this wide open spot center of the ice where you'd think Florida would be the best at covering, and it would end up in a goal. It's like perfectly managed, perfectly managed. Oops, we left the door open, and it's in the net. Which just
Yeah.
with Bob back there, you kind of figure you can gamble a little bit more, but that's playoffs, man. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. Like goalies are so important, right? Like your goalie gets hot at the right time. Look at 2012, I think was LA. Like
Yeah,
yeah, like
nobody had heard it quick before that series. Yeah,
Quick just turned it on, and it was just like they went all the way, right? And they were a wild card.
yeah. They
So I
had they had
think
to win the last night to get into the playoffs. Their very last game, they had to win.
yeah, and those are the types of stories that always happen. So it's so hard to predict all this stuff, but if you're going with like depth, identity, and the style of play that these guys play, I just see Dallas going so far. And then if Toronto you know makes it there, they're a scary team to play against right now.
Yeah, even with their backup in net, who's I thought was a solid goaltender too. All
Yep,
right,
that might be
Cole.
their Achilles heel too, right?
Yeah,
So
it could be.
goaltending,
It
big
could
time.
be.
Yep.
And it's crazy you don't see my last concussion was caused almost that identical way. It was unintentional, but it's so crazy to be because you lean so far forward as a goaltender when you're in the butterfly, your head's out there, and you got that guy coming, east to west, and then when they make contact with you, I'm surprised we don't see those concussions more often because it's crazy how like it's just jarring as a goaltender to have that happen to you.
Yeah, watch
Um,
out for Washington too. Their
oh
experience
yeah,
and the way they play as a team. Like I see them coming back, and evening things out at least. Um, but yeah, there's some really really good hockey going on. It's really fun to watch.
yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for being on the show, Cole. What can we expect from you next? More articles, more coverage. You gonna cover the World Championships?
Yep, coverage of the World Championships. I mean, primarily around Team USA because there's a handful of Utah Mammoth on that roster. And it's fun to watch Keller and Cooley playing all line with Tage Thompson. Obviously, Josh Doan is on there as well, and then a little bit on Czechia with Vamelka and Barrett Hayton.
May 20th.
Yep.
May 20th. USA versus Czechia. We get to see our boys shoot. And Jack, what do you got going on? I know you got. I've been a guest. I've been a horrible guest on your show. The last time I was in the Mazda dealership and I set my phone on the window, and right as we started talking, my phone overheated, so I didn't get to be. My phone just shut off for like a half hour. So you've got the hot seat you do on Wednesdays on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like once a week. I don't know. We're kind of shooting from the hip on what day, what time we do it. I don't even know if you can call it a show. It's more just Instagram lives and entertainment. Right now, we got a little bit of momentum with it. We had Jimmy Howard on this past week. It was great. We're probably going to do a part 2 with him.
Amazing.
But the whole goal here is to educate and educate the area. That's mainly the most of the people that follow me right now. But I have some following from Dallas parents too, and I always have these redundant conversations with these families and these parents, and I just I think we need to hear it. They need to hear it from a different voice other than me. So I want to bring that in. We had Troy Ward on, who's associate head coach with Mankato State University, and he's super experienced with all these things too. He's scouting all this stuff for a long time, assistant coach in the NHL and head coach in the AHL. Like we're trying to bring those people in that see and understand how the hockey world works and just educate people, kind of put Utah on blast a little bit. So now we're going to shift gears and go a little bit more positive. But yeah, there's some frustration on my end, as a
I
coach.
think Utah needed to be put on blast, and that's actually what I was telling Cole. I was like, "Hey, Jack's a good friend of mine, and the one good thing about him is he's so passionate about correcting what's been going on in Utah for so long. So now you're an amazing resource for Utah to kind of right the ship and get rid of a bunch of the bull crap that's going on as far as coaching in the past, you know. And I think
Well,
now
I
that you've
think
gotten the
it's
Mammoth,
Jay. I think it's what I've learned through this opportunity with the hot seat. Um, Talking to people and learning a little bit from it, I've learned that, like, look at David Clarkson and what those guys are doing in Okanagan and Denver, right? They're not like the guy. Like, maybe on paper they are, because it's they're running that organization, but they're bringing in a lot of people, right, to help them with their organization. And I think that that's a mistake. When you want to be the sole guy on the ice with the kids the whole time, and you're not networking and using your relationships in the hockey community to fly guys into town. I mean, there's a network of former NHLers that are helping with kids. Like, there's no reason why we can't get them here in a beautiful part of the world and work with the kids, help with these programs going on. Or, I mean, shit, sorry, like, can we get them to move here?
yeah,
Right? Like, how do we get them to move here and really, this is a great spot to live. So I think that's a big mistake we've made, here in Utah, is like everyone's trying to be the guy and they want to be the person doing all of it. Why can't somebody just be the guy that orchestrates the whole thing? Like, bring in the right people, build relationships with all these people, and start creating systemic change. And that's my frustration. My frustration lies in the fact that we just there's a little bit too much ego right now.
yeah. See, that was exactly my philosophy when I ran my camp here. I ran a camp here for 19 years. I barely ever coached it. I always brought in Jordan Parisi and like the other names that I knew from being a rep or from e-bugging or whatever. I always tried to bring in people that actually knew what they were talking about. My name was on the camp. Well, actually, it wasn't. I called it the Hockey Development Academy, or it was the Goalie Development Academy, and then I bought out another camp. But it's the whole purpose was I had these resources. I brought them in to coach because they were, you know, it was their DNA, especially with the Parisis, bringing them in. Like that was
Yep. And
phenomenal.
that's what
So
I'm saying, not to be too long-winded with it, but like, that's my issue with my academy. My name's on it. Right now, I did that because it was like, I have a name in the hockey world and it's, easy marketing, right? But now I'm looking at it like, oh man, like, I'd like to change it. Like, I'd like to get my name off of it and make it more about the guys I'm bringing in than my name. I appreciate and I'm flattered that people follow me and they want to come to our stuff. And we do have excellent programs in the state, and we've developed players. But there's a lot of movement, right? Like, you'll see a group of players one year, and then they go off to the grass is greener thing, or the FOMO thing, and then all of a sudden they come back the following year and you're working with them again. You're like, it feels like you kind of almost have to start over, right? So it's like there's no real sustained long term. Just stay in one spot. Like, be patient with the development. Let's build from here. We see it from a state board angle. We see it from a state youth organization as a whole. Yeah, there's not much. There's too much movement. There's too much movement from organization to organization with these families. There's grace for it, but it's like, come on, we need some boundaries here, right? Like, how do we get players to stick and stay patient with their growth? And how do we create a top that we have really good players at the right spot, playing at the right level, giving them a reason to stay, and then while walk and chew gum at the same time, let's grow the bottom. Conversation I had with George Chalice last night was like, big mistakes guys like me make. Um, we tend to go for the better players because the better players want to work with us, right? We tend to forget about the B and C level players, right? But if you say the words, "I'm for the growth of the game," stacking your teams, that's half of it. That's half of it. You still need to work. You need to have good coaches with the lesser talented individuals at the younger ages. And if you can broaden that growth through having good coaches with those lesser talented individuals, you should systematically start growing the game more. And then, if we 5x our might registrations over the next, 5 to 10 years, we're going to grow. But we need the players at the top, to have a reason to stay. And you can do those things simultaneously, but it takes a lot of coordination, and it takes a lot of collaboration, and it takes a lot of relationship building. And I'm not going to hold my breath right now. I'm a little bit discouraged to see what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I know that it's a work in progress. I know that we got a lot of good things happening, and we'll have to do another podcast about that and just get it all out and talk more. We'll get George on too.
Yep.
But again, thanks for being on the show today, Cole. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the office on Monday, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
All right. And
Hey, thanks
Nice
for
to meet
having
you,
me,
Jack.
guys. I'm honored, and good to meet you, Cole. We'll see you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
all right, thanks,
bye.
guys.